Hey guys, this is Connor here for Connor's English Corner, episode 10. This is going to be for January 1st, 2018. So happy New Year, everybody. First Connor's English Corner of the new year. So we might as well start it off with English Weiss in a nutshell. Sword Art Online. Hey. So the new set came out, Ordinal Scale, on December 22nd. So we've had a couple weeks to test. I imagine most other Sword Art players have been testing the new cards. I think I've got my list down just about to how I want it for the spring season if I play it. So, gonna go through that here. This is a last shot Sinon deck. I do think Sinon is still probably the best, just the most consistent and safe option as far as Sword Art top end goes. I might cover like Switch or Link Attack or Link Strike in English, I think it is, later. But for now, I think Last Shot is the best build of the deck. So that's the one I'm going to be covering right now. So for a deck overview here, we've got our pros and cons. For once, we actually have pros significantly outweighing cons. This is just an incredibly good deck. You have plenty of utility options. Your cards are all very high powered on offense, so you're usually wiping your opponent's board. You have very good hand fixing options. You're never really gonna no matter what's in your hand, you can always just change it to the stuff you need. You have plenty of cards that just let you filter cards out. You have a very strong level 1 combo, potentially the best in the format. The only one that I think could potentially be better is the Aaron from Attack on Titan. Level 3, we have a very powerful finisher that can just steal games. Just launches a ton of damage at the opponent. And we have a huge card pool. Sword Art is now sitting on, effectively 4 full sets of cards. So we have plenty of options. And it just gives us a lot of sort of tech cards that we can fit in. You'll see when I show my list, I'm playing tons of one-ofs, just that can fit sort of whatever scenario we need them for. And with the powerful hand-fixing options, we can always get to those one-ofs when we need them. So the cons of the deck are that a lot of your effects take stock. So you do have to be very careful with how much stock you're spending, so that you don't go into level 3 and not have enough to play your finisher. Your cards are very weak on the opponent's turn, so you might be killing your opponent's board every turn, but they are also probably killing yours every turn. So we've got to just make the most out of every plus we can take and get as much card advantage as possible so that we just don't run out of cards. Excuse me. So the last issue is that our finisher doesn't actually really deal precise damage. So I know a lot of you probably used to Attack on Titan by now. How the Mikasa level 3, it just deals 1 a bunch of times. This is nothing like that. We're actually just sort of slinging giant numbers at the opponent and hoping one of them sticks eventually. So that is a downside to the deck, is that fairly compressed opponents will be able to cancel our top end at least a good bit of the time. So you have to be careful about that. So here's my deck list. You can see on the bottom row there tons of one-ofs. But, so the only thing in here, I'm playing yellow, green, blue. A lot of people I know aren't on yellow right now. I think yellow is worth it. The one thing I'm still unsure about that I might be changing is the Married Life Asuna. You can see in the top left corner. I might be changing those, and I'll talk about that when I get to the sort of other options section, what I might be changing that to. But, yeah, so here's the list. Didn't change a ton with the new set. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 new cards. A lot of them are just at 1 or 2 copies though. So this just gave us a lot of options really in this set that help the deck out. So first card we have is Asuna's Married Life. This has been pretty much the staple back row assist in Sword Art ever since the first set came out. This was a 500 assist, and whenever you play a climax, you can choose a character and give it 1,000 power. So it really complements your goal of just always killing your opponent's board on your turn. Because when you go to do your level 1 climax combo, you're just adding even more power and breaking through whatever walls they have, or just guaranteeing kills through backups and whatnot. So yeah, this is just there to help guarantee kills and whatnot. The 500 assist is also nice, just cross turn, late game once you have bigger characters that are actually protectable. Because a lot of your level 1s, the 500 is not really going to matter a ton, just because they're like 4Ks and 4-5s. But yeah, and being yellow is important. If you noticed when I showed the deck is very thin on color, for both yellow and green, really. Less so green, but green is also very important at level 1, which is why I've opted to play a lot of green variants of cards. But yellow is like super thin, so having Asuna's Merry Life as another yellow card is good. Next we have Comforting Moment Asuna. This is a card I play 4 of. I know most people do not play 4 of this. I've seen it a lot as like a 2 of. I think this is a like super good card to be playing 4 of though. So on play, you can choose 2 characters in your waiting room and shuffle them back into your deck, and you'll gain +1 soul. So the +1 soul is really nice because that makes it a costless 2 soul beater effectively. But it also means that all of your 1-ofs, if they come out of your deck too early, you can shuffle them back in. So you can search them out with Yuki or something. The other thing is that a lot of the 1-ofs that you're going to be shuffling back are level 2 and higher. So they're all going to have soul triggers. So you're sending soul triggers back to your deck and gaining a soul, so you're just pushing a lot of extra damage throughout the course of the game in very small increments. So it really helps you just keep up the damage race. The second effect, when this becomes reversed in battle, you can reveal the top card of your deck. If it's level 1 or higher, you can put this card into your stock. So that helps you just build stock and keep stock so that you can pay for more effects without running out of resources. And it has really good synergy with the first effect because you're usually going to be sending back level 2s and 3s. So that raises your chance of hitting the level 1 or higher top check and going to stock. So throughout a game, I play very aggressively with this card. Throughout a game, I'll send like at least 2 to 3 of it to stock, just because I'm playing it over and over again, and grabbing it off of searches and whatnot. So it just sort of like fuels all of your effects, so that when you get to the end game, you can just go off. Next, I'm playing 2 copies now of Sleeping Knights, Talken and Nori in June. So this card is our Brainstorm. So it gives our front row middle slot Yuki or Asuna +1 level and +1000 power. That's not super relevant anymore. We do still have the Yuki 1-0 as our main level 1 combo, so it helps that. You can give it extra power. You have to be careful though. The +1 level, if you resolve a Yuki combo in front middle slot, makes your Yuki a level 3. So Attack on Titan can summon their Eren level 3, and Konosuba can summon their Darkness level 3 against you at level 2. Just inherently, because your Yuki's a level 3. So you have to be careful about that. But otherwise, it's just sort of an extra 1000 power that sometimes matters. I mean, power is never a bad thing to just have more of. We're really playing the card for the Brainstorm effect, which is pay 1, rest 2 characters. You brainstorm 4, and for each climax, search your deck for an avatar net. So it's just a typical rest 2 search brainstorm. I was playing 4 copies of this, but I took 2 of them out, and I took the 3rd copy of Asuna's Married Life out in order to fit 3 copies of Sister Fond of Her Brother Leafa. So initially, I thought that this card was like really bad with Yuki, just because it's so much stock. But it turned out, when I was testing the deck without this, I kept finding that I had too much stock and not enough hand throughout all my games. So I decided to take out a couple of Brainstorms and a couple of, or the 1 copy of Married Life, to put in 3 of this, and it has really helped out, just transferring that stock into hand. Because like I said, I play really aggressively with the Asuna Comforting Moment. So I was getting enough stock just off of those, and getting the extra soul and stuff, but I just was running out of hand. It wasn't that I was like running out of hand, but I was sitting on like 3 or 4 hand a lot of times when I should have been on like 5 or 6. So this just really helps with that. It's once per turn when you play an act ability, you can choose a character and give it 1,000 power. So this is triggering off of your brainstorm. You can give 1,000 on offense, or when you play a backup, you can give 1,000 on defense. Not super relevant in the deck because we don't have a bunch of just act abilities that are easily accessible. But occasionally it will make your backups. It makes your backups stronger. So that's relevant occasionally. The second effect is whenever you play a climax, no matter what the climax is, you can pay 1 stock to look at up to 4 cards on the top of your deck, choose an avatar or net character, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and the rest go to waiting room. So this just, it refunds your climaxes for 1 stock, effectively. It also makes it better late game. A lot of time before this set came out, if you drew like a book or an extra bar and didn't have a combo to go off, you would just be like using just some effect to discard the climax and swap it for a different card. But now this Leafa lets you play the climax and still get good value out of it. So you're still replacing the climax, which you would have been doing anyway, but you're also getting the soul push out of it, which ends up being really relevant in the deck. It just helps you keep up in damage and get your opponent to a spot where your finisher, instead of trying to just kill them from a long distance, you're hitting them with multiple attacks that are all lethal. So it makes everything just work a lot smoother. I'm playing 1 copy of Kendo Bootcamp Suguha. So it's a 3k power, which is pretty good, because just random utility cards that your opponent is fielding and runners and whatnot aren't going to be able to kill this. So it's usually, if you do end up having to field this turn 1, it'll live. The only thing that's going to kill it are opposing oversizes, really. Or like a 25 power runner with an assist behind it will like tie it. Yeah, so all your other characters cannot side attack. Usually not relevant. You're usually not side attacking until like really late game in this deck. Like, you just don't have much incentive to. So that's usually just not an issue. And like late game, this is just a one of, so you're not really going to be stuck on this late game, and that become an issue. So the other effect is on play, you can pay 1 and discard a card to search your deck for an avatar or net character. This is the 3rd drop searcher that Sword Art has gotten. The first being a Kirito and the second being a Silica, so blue and red. So this one's green, which is really important, because like I said, green's really important at level 1, so every bit of green that we can get really helps. The other thing is that this is the only one that can search net, which before this set probably wasn't super relevant. There were a couple of net cards that didn't have avatar. Like this one itself is net sports, so it's not avatar. But we do have like the Yuna cards in this set are net music. There's a couple other cards that are just net but not avatar. So this is the only drop searcher that can grab those. Then we have 4 copies of Temporary Alliance Kirito. So this is a mill runner. Beginning of opponent's attack phase, put the top card of your deck into waiting room. If it's avatar or net, you can move this to an open position. So this is just our sort of like standard plussing 0 that we want to open with. That's always going to live turn 1. Other text is when this card attacks, choose a character with Sinon in its card name and it gains 1,000 power until end of turn. Completely irrelevant in this deck. Our only Sinon is the level 3 and like a level 2. It can sometimes help the level 2 out, because our level 2 is actually like a level 3 killer. So the extra power sometimes helps there. But largely irrelevant text. And sometimes, a lot of times, I just wish this was like 2,500 power vanilla mill runner. But I can see it being useful, like to help the level 2 Sinon, which we'll get to later. So then we have 3 copies of Time to Get Serious Kirito. When this card is placed on stage from your hand, this gets plus 1,500 power. So you're 35 during the turn you're played. I typically really don't like cards that just gain power on play at level 0, because you don't care a ton about killing stuff at level 0, and like then they just become small and die, and you lose cards. But this Kirito is actually really good. His other effect is when this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, you can choose one of your other avatar or net characters, rest it, and move it to an open backstage position. So this is really good. We have like a lot of back row cards. So this means that we can open up with like Kirito. If we go second, we can play Kirito and a back row card. And we get the attack with the back row card. And then Kirito, when he reverses his opponent, can just move it to our back row again to keep it safe. So it's effectively a +1, because you're getting that attack. And then the card's not dying, because it's going to your back row. You can also use it with the Comforting Moment Asuna. If you attack with that and crash into something and reverse, if you miss your top check and don't go to stock, the Kirito can rest it so you can get another shot at the skill either on your opponent's turn or during your next turn. So that's really nice. Also, there is an interaction with this and one of our early plays that I guess we'll talk about more when we get to the early play, just so it makes a little more sense. So we're playing 2 copies of Vice Commander Asuna. Even though our characters are really weak on defense most of the time, we're playing 2 copies of this backup. It's just a standard 2k backup. Though this one is splittable, they don't really print these anymore. You can split the 1000 and the plus 1000 between 2 different characters. But you have to know it requires 2 or more Avatar or Net on board, which is still like always going to happen. But the ones that aren't splittable, the newer ones, just require you to have 1 on board instead of 2 or more. But so we are playing this because occasionally, a lot of decks, their secondary level ones, that are just sort of like their utility level ones, are only hitting like 6k, maybe 7k. And this backup, in addition to the 1000 power from the Leafa 0 when we play an act ability, and some of our assists, we can actually protect our Yukis and Kiritos at level 1 from our opponents, just sort of like secondary level 1s. This also helps us protect our early play, because our early play is actually a reasonable size. So it can protect it from opposing early plays and opposing level 2s and whatnot. And then at level 3, we play a clock kick, so like, I guess protecting it is relevant sometimes. But yeah, this is just for protecting random characters, and it's yellow, so it's yellow fix for our yellow cards. We play 4 copies of Zeka and Yuki, one of the most important cards in the deck. When this is placed on stage from hand, this gets plus 500 power times the number of Avatar or Net characters you have. So this ends up being usually either like a 106,000 or 1065 on play. Your climax makes that 7,000 or 75. And then you have like Married Life can pump it by 1,000. If it's in the middle slot, it's getting 1,000 from your Brainstorm, and stuff like that. So these things are pretty big. They're just running over most things. But what's nice is even if they're not, your climax combo does not require you to reverse. So it's just on attack, you pay 1 and discard 1 to search your deck for up to 2 Avatar or Net characters. And then you get plus 1 level until the end of the opponent's turn. So you can just attack with these straight into bombs. You keep the level, so if you attack with these and your opponent fields bombs, they can't kill your Yukis, which is super relevant against like Love Live Sunshine. Because if they're playing the Chica combo, they can't just bomb you to get their reverse for their combo. Most other decks aren't running level 1 bombs right now, but, you know. Plus 1 level still means they can't side you with zeros and a climax or whatever. So, the discarding a card is really nice here, because you can discard extra climaxes if you have books in hand early, or if you have, just random cards you don't need right now. You can discard those. A lot of times what I'll do with a Yuki, if I field 2 of them, is the first one I'll search a card I need and a card I don't need. And then for the second one, I'll just discard the card that I don't need, that I searched, to get 2 more cards I need. Just if like everything in my hand is already good, and I don't want to discard any of that. Excuse me, voice is still a little rough from New Year's. Yeah, so the climax for this is also a gold bar. So it's very consistent, compared to a lot of level 1 combos. You're just like, because if you trigger check the climax, it'll go to your hand. So you'll have your combo more often than a lot of other decks. Next card we play 4 of is Determination with Life on the Line Kirito. This is a really good level 1 from Re-Edit. So on play, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an Avatar or Net character, this gains 2,000 power until end of turn. If it's not an Avatar or Net, that means it was a Climax, meaning you just Brainstorm and get a free card. So that's pretty neat interaction. But also, when he's put into your waiting room from the stage, so he attacks really big, and then when your opponent kills him, he gets an effect. You can reveal up to 3 cards from the top of your deck. If you reveal 1 or more, choose an Avatar or Net from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest in waiting room, and discard a card. So this is another discard out for us. This is decent for like if you trigger check bars during your own turn that you want, then when he dies you can discard them before you get around to your next turn. And this can also just like, it can get you more cards going into your next turn that you need. Since you're doing this when he dies, you're usually going to get cards after you see how much damage has been dealt to you, so you know exactly what you need going into your turn already and can plan things out a little better. But otherwise, yeah, he's just a big beater and can filter some cards for us. It's also mill power. The deck doesn't really have any costless mill other than this. There is one card I'll get to in the other options that gives us a little bit of costless mill, but this is the biggest one that's just milling us for free. Next I have 2 copies of SAO Survivor, Asuna, and Kazuto. So during your opponent's turn, all of your other avatar or net characters get 1,000 power. We're not really playing the card because of this ability, but it is noteworthy that it's there. Because this makes your Yuki's 5,000 and your Kirito's 55. So now your backups, if you have a Leafa 0 on board, are putting you at 8k and 85. Which is reasonable power on defense. That actually beats a decent number of like reverse combos and stuff. So this card can be pretty good for that. Given this does have to live on offense if you're going to do that. And we're normally front rowing this since we want like Brainstorm and Leafa in back row, or Married Life and Leafa in back row, or Married Life and Brainstorm. There's just not really room for this in back row, so a lot of times we're putting this in the front row. And we need this to live in order to get the power boost on defense. The other effect is what we're actually playing it for. When this card is placed on stage from your hand, look at up to 2 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest in your waiting room, and then discard a card. So it's not a plus, it's just sort of a hand filter, but it lets you hand filter for anything in the top 2 cards of your deck. So this lets us dig a little deeper for climaxes, and just to get characters. And it also acts as a discard out and like a kind of a mill 2. The mill 2 is it's not a lot of mill, but given we don't have any other besides the Kirito I just talked about, it's welcome. But so yeah, we're usually using this if we didn't draw a gold bar for level 1, or if we want to try to dig a little further into a Yuki, or if we're at level 3 and just need a book. This can dig a little bit to get us the book for no cost. So that's pretty nice. Going into level 2, we have today's MVP, Asuna. So this is an anti-change stock bomb. When this is reversed, if the battle opponent is a higher level than your opponent, you can put that into stock, and then put the bottom card of their stock into waiting room. So this is level 3 early play removal that kills hexproof stuff. So this is mainly here for darkness, and once Persona 5 comes out, it'll be here for like Fox. Just things that get really big, that our other early play killer can't remove. Or things that might have Encore, that reversing just doesn't cut it against. So this is just like hard removal. I do like this one. We got 2 of the cards that are just like hard removal anti-change in this set. I prefer this one because of the second effect, or the first effect, I guess. When this card is placed on stage from hand, draw a card, discard a card. So this is just more hand filtering, which is always nice. Like, there's no downside to having more hand filtering in your deck. So this card is yellow, which is one of the reasons we have a bunch of yellow fix, is to field this. And you're not going to field it in every matchup. You're not going to field it in most matchups, in fact. But, like I said, Konosuba, Persona 5 in the future, this is pretty relevant against. Next, we have Gathering Materials Leafa as a level 2 backup. Usually using this to protect early plays in level 3s, more so than level 1s. But protecting level 1s is an option if it comes to it. So I'm playing this one. It's a 25 backup, and when you use the backup, you can reveal the top card of your deck. If it's Avatar or Net, put it in hand, discard a card. So again, just more hand filtering. And this one also lets you dig toward climaxes. Since you're playing this while your opponent is attacking you, if you top check an Avatar or Net, then you just removed a non-climax from the top of your deck. If you top check and it's not Avatar Net, that means you're canceling because it was a climax. Because we play no events in this deck. So it's really good because it sort of just increases your chances of canceling very marginally. But also provides hand filter discard outs during the opponent's turn and whatnot. So our last level 2 is Adventure with Sinon. Adventure with Everyone Sinon. This is our other level 3 killer. When this attacks, if the character facing this card is level 3 or higher, this gets plus X power until end of turn. X is 1,000 multiplied by the number of avatar or net characters you have. It does count itself, so on a full board it's plus 5,000 power, which makes it a 12-5. If you have an assist behind it, it's going to be like 13. Climax can make it 14. Act boost can make it 15. So it gets relatively big. It kills a lot of early plays. We do have an early play of our own that can pump it even more. We do have the runner can pump it 1,000, because it has Sinon in card name. So that's pretty nice. And if you do play a climax and have Married Life on board, that's another 1,000 that you can pump into it. So you're killing most early plays. And then its other effect is also really, really good for the deck. On play, you can pay 1 and discard a climax to choose a climax in your waiting room and add it to your hand. So since our 2 climaxes are Gold Bar and Book, our level 3 needs the Book, but the Gold Bar is the one that's more likely to end up in our hand, because if we trigger it, it just goes straight to our hand. And this lets us trigger check a Gold Bar into our hand, and then play the Sinon to discard the Gold Bar and grab the Book. It also means that any of our cards that are like blindly checking top and letting us add a card, if they top check into a bar, it's not the end of the world, because we can just add the bar and trade it for a Book with the Sinon. So it makes our level 3 combo a lot more consistent. Going into level 3, we have Attack in Waves Asuna. So this is a 3/2 5k. It's an assist. All of your avatar or net characters in front of this card get plus 2,000 power and the following ability. When this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, you may put that character into your opponent's memory, so it's not mandatory. This is really big. This is the whole reason we're playing the card, honestly. This other effect is on play. You can search your deck for an avatar or net character, reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. And the last effect is a climax combo. It's the whole like switch combo, the attack in waves, where you swap the Asunas and Kiritos to attack. It's basically the alternate top end to Sinon, but we're not playing the climax or the Kirito. So this is just here for the assist, basically. And if you get this and a Sinon, this is basically the second Sinon, because you can, on play, search your deck for the Sinon. So that's really good. Alternatively, all of our one-ofs, if you need any of the one-of level 3s, and you draw this, you can just play this to search out the one-of level 3. So that's really good. And we have the Comforting Moments Asuna. So if that one-of is in our waiting room, we can play Comforting Moments, shuffle it back into our deck, get +1 soul, play Attack in Waves Asuna, search the one-of out that we just shuffled back in, and get its effect. But the assist is really relevant. 2k power makes your stuff big, obviously. The main reason we have this is for opposing Sword Art that is playing Switch or Link Strike. If they're playing Switch or Link Strike, and their character gets sent to memory, they basically just lose their whole turn. Link Strike or Switch requires 4 or more other characters on board, as you can see in the bottom effect here. So if you memory kick one of their characters, their Asuna can't resolve because they don't have 4 or more other characters. And if the Asuna itself is very small, and they have to attack with either the Asuna or Kirito first to get the full combo. The Asuna is obviously very small. It's 5k base, so it's going to be like attacking for like 7k. So you're probably memory kicking the Asuna if they attack with it first. If they attack with Kirito first, however, he is kind of big. But what ends up happening, if he's smaller than you, he gets sent to memory and none of their stuff resolves. If he's bigger than you, he has a mandatory effect that is like the 0/0 Kirito we have, where you rest one of your other characters and move it to back row. And that's mandatory. So they have to rest one of their other characters if their Kirito reverses you. So either way, whether they're bigger or smaller with Kirito, they're losing at least 1 attack. Other things this helps against, Tolovru, Yami is not very large on offense, so if a Yami crashes into a lane that's boosted by your Asuna and goes to memory, then that's a lane that they cannot play Darkness Plan or Project Darkness or whatever the 3/3 counter that anti damages you. They cannot play that counter if you open up a direct attack lane, because there's no counter step during direct attacks. This also applies to Sword Art, I suppose, because Sword Art has anti-damage counter now. Cinderella Girls has a event counter that rests characters. So just any of these counter step interactions, opening a direct attack lane means they can't counter you. And they can't encore the Yami because it's going to memory and whatnot. So really helps in just matchups like that. Also Konosuba, if they're playing Eris. Eris is also really small, and she normally crashes and then restands, because she doesn't care if she reverses her battle opponent or not. It's just on middle character attack, she can restand. So if they're playing Eris and they crash into a lane, then they just go to memory, and they can't restand. So that's really good too. And technically Megumin, if they're playing the Burn 5 Megumin, and because that's the beginning of Encore Step. So if they crash and go to memory, their effect won't resolve, because they're not on board at Encore Step. So this just really messes with lots of decks. It also makes you big enough, if they cancel your Sinon, you are potentially bigger than AOT's Mikasa, with the 2k assist and the 35 from them canceling and playing like a counter or something. Next we have Adventure with Everyone Leafa. So this is plus 500 for each other avatar or net. On play, look at up to X cards from the top of your deck, choose one, put it in your hand, put the rest in waiting room. X is equal to the number of avatar or net characters you have. So if you play this last, you're looking at top 5. Often you'll play it and look at like top 4. If you really need the book, you're definitely playing it last and looking at top 5. So this can get you the book, because it doesn't care what you grab. It can get you the book, it can top check into a bar, and then you trade it to a book with 2/1 Sinon. You could have a bar, and this top checks into 2/1 Sinon, and then you trade it into a book. That's pretty good. But yeah, just stuff like that. It helps you get your climax combo. Alternatively, it helps you get extra Sinons. If you already have the book, but only one Sinon, this can check top 5 for a second Sinon. And the last effect is when this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, you can discard 2 characters to clock kick. So, sort of alternative finisher. This is how you completely lock down your opponent with the Asuna. If you put the Asuna backing 2 lanes, and then the Leafa in the 3rd lane that's not got Asuna, no matter what lane, if they crash, you remove them from board. Because you either memory kick them on the 2 Asuna lanes, or you clock kick them on the Leafa lane. So no matter what, you can remove them from board. So this is just like this completes the lockdown. And what's nice is if you get Asuna, you can play Asuna and search for Leafa. So if you have one, you'll pretty much always be able to get the other. Also noteworthy is that the clock kick is on both players' turns. So if your opponent crashes, well, I mean, yeah, that's how the whole lockdown works. They crash on their turn, and you clock kick them. So yeah, that's priority clear. So Songstress Yuna is our new early play. It's -1 level for 2 or fewer climaxes in waiting room, which the deck normally, the way the timing works out, you'll be hitting level 2. You'll hit level 2 sort of like right after refresh, optimally, and you can play this down, get your heal. So it does heal on play. The last effect is on attack, you can choose one of your other avatar or net characters, and it gets plus X until end of turn. X is 500 times the number of your avatar or net characters. So if you play this with the 2/1 Sinon that gains 1,000 times your avatar net against level 3s, you can give it an extra 2,000 power. So that's putting it at like 14-5, 15-5 on Climax, 16, 17 on Married Life, which is just like huge, and you can kill pretty much anything. Another relevant card to pump is the Time to Get Serious Kirito. If you can put 2,000 on it, it's on play, it becomes a 35. The 2,000 makes it a 55. It's like 6k with an assist, 7k on a Climax, 8k on Married Life. So you can kill a level 1 with it. So you can like swing with Yuna. You can play like Yuna, push up your Married Life, and play the Kirito, and then swing with Yuna, pump the Kirito, crash the Married Life, and then kill something with Kirito and pull the Married Life back to your back row. So you effectively just get a +1 because you got an attack and didn't have to play a character from your hand. Alternatively, if you think your opponent has an answer to Yuna, you can rest the Yuna and move it to back row so they can't kill your Yuna, and then you can attack with it again for 2 soul next turn. So our last one of is the Full of Vigor Yui. On play, it gains 500 times the number of avatar or net characters you have, so it gets big. It gets like 12k on play if you play it last. There's a lot of stuff in this deck, though, that kind of wants to be played last, so sometimes that conflicts. The last effect is during your opponent's turn, when the damage you receive is not cancelled. If this is in your front row, look at the top card of your deck and put it on top of your deck or into your waiting room. So if you do field this and don't kill your opponent, you have a little bit of a defensive blanket, I guess. It's not huge in helping you live, because if you cancel, then you don't get to scry. But if your opponent hits you for like 2 or whatever, you can check the top card, and if it's not a climax, you can put it in a waiting room to dig deeper to cancels. It works really well against stuff like Yami, where you can cancel, and then they deal 1 to you, so you can check top card. If they stack two cancel burns on 1 Yami, their turn player, so both will go off, so you'd cancel, take 1, and then look at top. So it means that you can just like dig deep to cancel all their 3s, and you just eat all the 1s, so it can really help you live against stuff like Yami. The middle effect is the one that we're really playing it for. When this card is placed on stage from hand, you can discard 2 cards. If you do, put all of your opponent's stock into your opponent's waiting room, and your opponent puts the same number of cards from the top of his or her deck into the stock. So this is an effect that a lot of people sort of have misconceptions about. They think when you play this, oh, my opponent has climaxes, has climaxes in deck, I should do this. Just blow out the stock and put them all in, and maybe I just like stock all their climaxes and win. And yes, sometimes that will happen. But this card has no like actual tangible effect on the game state unless it causes your opponent to refresh their deck. So if it causes them to refresh their deck, so say they have 5 cards in deck and 5 stock, and you're sending all their stock to the waiting room and stocking everything in their deck, you at that point know 100% that you are stocking every climax left in their deck. And as long as that's more than what's already in their stock, then that's a good thing. The issue is, say they have 12 cards in deck and 4 stock. They have 12 cards in deck, 3 climaxes in it, 4 stock. And you play this, and you knock out that 4 stock, and they blind stock 4 from the top of their deck. They could stock all 3 climaxes. They could stock 0. On average, they're going to stock 1. Because 3 and 12 is 1 and 4. Obviously, that's not how a randomized deck works, so it's not going to be exactly 1, but if you did it over and over again, it's going to average out to 1. So if you do stock 1, say you take 4 cards off the top of their deck and there's 1 climax, they're now left with an 8-card deck with 2 climaxes in it, which still reduces down to 1 and 4. So you haven't actually changed anything about their deck. If you just did this over and over again, on average, you're going to find that nothing changes about their deck. It is just smaller. And they still have the same ratio of climaxes to non-climaxes, because that's how ratios work. So you only get your tangible advantage when you are forcing them to refresh, because then you know that every climax is going into stock. Say your opponent has 5 cards in deck, 2 climaxes, and they have like 7 stock. Yeah, you're going to do this, because then you're stocking 2 climaxes, and you have a chance of them not just canceling everything you do. This is really there for those scenarios where they have a small deck, and you know there are climaxes left, and you don't think Sinon can kill them through the climaxes. So you play this alongside your Sinons, and force like 2 climaxes into their stock, and then kill them. But just don't think that randomly slamming this is actually a good thing. because it's not. It's a very real cost that you have to pay discarding 2 cards, especially alongside Sinons. Like that's not something you can easily do every game. So don't just slam this randomly. Know when it's useful, when it's not. Obviously, if they have like 6 cards, and there's only 1 climax left, and they have, I don't know, 5 stock, maybe you do it. Maybe you don't. You might just be able to kill them through that. It depends on what their waiting room is. You don't want to... If their waiting room is better than 1 in 6, you probably just attack into the deck. Because then, if you just, like, stock them out and then get the new deck, there's a chance they just cancel everything anyway. Because you're now attacking into, like, a 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 deck instead of that free, like, potential 5 damage you had. So you have to be very careful with this. Weigh your options. Don't just slam this down. But in the situations where it does just stock 2 or 3 climaxes and force your opponent into a refresh when they thought they were going to live, that's why we play this, is for those scenarios. They're few and far between, but we can steal the game when they happen. Last, we have Last Shot Sinon. When this card's placed on stage from hand or by a change effect, which we don't play, you can put the top card of your clock into your waiting room, so it heals. Climax combo on attack, pay 2, discard 1, deal 4 damage. If they cancel it, you gain 3,500 until the end of the opponent's turn. Climax is a book. And when this becomes reversed in battle, put this into memory. So it's kind of over specs. That's the downside, is that it goes to memory when it gets reversed, so you can't just encore it. But yeah, so this is how we just sort of kill people, is just by shooting them for 4 a bunch of times. It's a very self-explanatory card. It's been around for a while. It just kills people. Sometimes you just steal games with this card. Your opponent's like nowhere within kill range, and you just stick 4 twice or something, and they die. Like it's a very real possibility, especially with the Yui. If you just like steal 2 or 3 climaxes from them by sending them to stock, and then Sinon just blows someone out, it can happen. It's part of why this deck is just so threatening. The moment when you realize you forgot to put the climaxes in the deck section. The climaxes should be fairly self-explanatory. It's a gold bar and a book. They're both continuous, plus 1,000, plus 1 soul to all your board. So other options. So these are some things that the deck ran before that it doesn't now, that it still could. Or just some stuff that I haven't put in here that I know a lot of people are thinking about, and might be viable options. So first up is on-stage Asuna. During your turn, all your other characters get plus 500 power. And it's a brainstorm. Same exact brainstorm as Sleeping Knights. Pay 1, rest 2. For each climax, search your deck for an avatar net. This I'm considering putting in over Married Life. It's not super often that the 1,000 pump from Married Life becomes relevant, though there are some times, which is why I'm not completely sold on this yet. But otherwise, the plus 500 during your turn is not much worse than a 500 assist, especially since we're usually not winning on defense anyway. And this would bring us back up to a total count of 4 brainstorms in the deck instead of just the 2, which I think might be important, having the 4 brainstorms, just so you have one more often. So I'm really considering putting this in over the 2 Married Lives. Next, we have Promise Under the Meteors, Asuna. So Sword Art doesn't have a ton of really good, like, low-cost pluses, I guess. A lot of decks are running, like, pay 1, clock 1 pluses, and Sword Art doesn't have a ton of good ones. This is one of the ones they do have. When this card becomes reversed in battle, you can put the top card of your stock into your clock, which is effectively just combining pay 1 and clock 1 into the same thing, and put this card into your memory. If you do, choose a character in your waiting room with Kirito, Asuna, or Yui in its card name and return it to your hand. Of note, this only grabs in-game Asuna where the name is written in katakana. It does not grab the IRL Asuna, where her name is written in kanji. You can see the difference in the Japanese card name at the bottom of the effect box. Just look for the 3 characters that it shows you here to see if it's a legal target. The only card that we play that is not a legal target is the 1-0 SAO Survivors Kazuto and Asuna that lets us check top 2. That card cannot be grabbed by this. All of our other Asunas and Kiritos can be, but that's still not a lot of cards. We don't play a ton of Asunas or Kiritos, so that's a little bit iffy. That's whether you'll have good targets consistently enough that this is worth it. Also, just finding the room for this card might not be easy. it probably has to replace Time to Get Serious Kirito. The other effect is pretty nice. On play, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your waiting room. If there's a climax, this gets +2 soul until end of turn. So that's just more damage push, and more free mill, which is pretty good. And it fills the waiting room for its own effect, so that you might have a Kirito or Asuna in waiting room. Or Yui, which we play like one of. So I have In the Midst of Loud Cheering Yuna. This is basically just the same exact card as Asuna, minus the milling effect. But when this is put into waiting room from the stage, so instead of on reverse, it's just when it dies. Put the top card of your stock into your clock. Choose a card in your clock, return it to hand, put the top card of your deck into your clock. So this one, if you're at 6 clock, you can't actually use this, because then you'll level up and not have anything to grab from. The cost will cause you to level up, and you can't grab anything. So that's a bit of a downside. Otherwise, it can grab a lot more things than the Asuna can, but it is limited to just what's in your clock at the time. I do think this one is slightly better, just because it is green, so it's better color fix, and it can grab Yukis, which the Asuna cannot, and getting Yuki for level 1 is super important. Either way, I think it's hard to fit them in the deck, though. Next we have Gathering Materials Silica. This card was played a lot before Ordinal Scale. I didn't play it, but almost everyone else did. It's a good card. It's a level 0 bomb that just reverse when this becomes reversed. If your opponent's character's level 0 or lower, you can reverse that. And when this is placed on stage from hand, reveal the top card of deck. If it's an avatar or net character, put it in hand, discard 1. So it's more hand filter. Issue being it's red, and level 0 bombs just aren't very good. So it doesn't help your color fixing at all, which is pretty important in this deck. And it doesn't help you plus at all. So I've pretty much just said not to play this and leave the hand fixing to like the Kirito level 1 and stuff like that. Next we have Mission in the Twilight Sinon. If you're one of the people out there that doesn't like having to fit the small amount of yellow in the deck because you think it's just not consistent enough or whatever, or not impactful enough, I think you're wrong. I think it's very impactful and very consistent. But B, if you don't want to play it, you play this instead of Married Life Asuna. This is actually just the same exact text 100%. 500 assists, give 1,000 when you play a climax, but it's blue. So it's in a better color if you're not playing any of the yellow stuff. Only difference that Asuna could still provide is that Asuna gains 1,000 power and a level from your Sleeping Knight's Brainstorm. So if you front row an Asuna, a Married Life Asuna behind, like in front of a Brainstorm, it's a level 1 1,500 power, which is still incredibly irrelevant, but it can kill like 1k stock bombs and clock bombs for some reason. Mission in the Twilight Sinon can't. I don't think that's too important, but it's something to keep in mind, I guess, if you're considering switching. Confident Profile Eiji. This is a very unique card. I don't think it's worth playing, but it's very unique, and I wanted to talk about it. The second effect is pretty cool. On play, you can pay 2, choose one of your opponent's characters, move it to an open position. If they cleared their front row or whatever, and you want a clock kick target, you can play this, and it gives you a clock kick target. Alternatively, if your opponent's high damage and cleared their board so that you would have to direct attack, you can play this and pull like a level 1 from their back row into front row, so you can side attack it for better damage numbers. Say they're at 3-5. If you want to go for Sinon combo with them at 3-5, you have to swing for 4. But if you pull a level 1 up, you can side for 2, which is way better. So it's neat in situations like that. The first effect is also pretty good, or pretty interesting at least. On play, you can choose a face-up card in your opponent's memory and put it face down. If you do, at the end of your turn, put it face up. So this is only relevant for a couple of cards. Obviously, there's stuff like Fairy Tail and Nisekoi, where they require specific cards in memory to gain effects, and like extra power and stuff. So this shuts those down. Like the 2-1 Chitoge that gains power for each pendant in memory. If you turn a pendant face down, it loses the power from it. This is also good against Kantai Collection and Kill la Kill, because they have anti-heal. And your Sinon's heal, obviously. So you can play this and turn their Hibiki face down, or their Ryuko face down. And then their anti-heal will not trigger when you play your Sinon. Only really worth it if they only have one Hibiki in memory. If they have more than one, then you turn one face down and the other one still forces you to pay two, which is really whatever. But as far as like, if they have one Hibiki, you can just play this, turn it face down, and then play your Sinons and heal two, and you just made their anti-heal useless. So it does have that one sort of useful aspect. That's really the only thing it does good. There are some cards in this set that require like the 0/0 Promise Under the Meteors Asuna in memory to gain effects, so you can shut those off. But I don't think that's really relevant enough to play this card. But the anti-heal thing might be. I don't know. I obviously don't have it in my list. I think it's a little too niche to be useful. Temporary Alliance Sinon. This was a card that was played a lot prior to re-edit, and still a little bit after re-edit. It gains 500 power for each of your other avatar or net characters, so it's a 6k base on a full board, and it has Clock Encore. The only reason I'm putting this here is because the deck does take a lot of stock to get its pluses, so this is a stockless plus. You just clock, because you can clock yourself to keep your character alive. That's effectively a clock 1+1. I don't see this ever being necessary for the deck, but if you're really insistent on not spending stock to keep your characters around, this is your option. Agile Start Asuna. I played this card in my deck before Ordinal Scale came out, and I think it's very good. It was one of the reasons I splashed yellow. It's a 1/1 8000 that cannot frontal attack a higher level card. It's really big, 1/1 8000 obviously. And I think there are a lot of cards in this set that work with it fairly well. So before, what would happen is you'd have Married Life and the Sleeping Knight's Brainstorm in back row, and this would be in your front and middle, so this would become a level 2, 9500. And since you're level 2, you can frontal attack level 2s. Or if you played 2 Brainstorms, this was a level 3, like 10k or 10.5, and you could frontal attack level 3s. Which, with like a Climax and a Married Life pump, you could kill early plays with this. Some of them. But you could just easily get around the whole like not able to front attack thing by giving extra levels off of your Brainstorms and stuff. And on defense, you're huge. You're 8k with 2k backups protecting you. If you actually had the Brainstorm, you're like 9k or 9.5, so your backups are putting you at 11 or 11.5. And now we have the 1/0 Kazuto and Asuna that gives 1000 on the opponent's turn. So that would make you like 10k. So your counter's putting you at 12. And we have the Leafa 0 that gives an extra 1000 when you use an act. So your counters are 3k counters. So you're potentially like defending at like 13k on this Asuna, which is insane. So there's a lot of cool use for it. I think it's still a very good card. I just don't play it because there's not room in my list. I was very sad to take it out, but I honestly just couldn't find the room. And it's a lot easier to justify yellow when you're just playing it at level 2 and 3, because at level 1, you actually need 3 colors at level 1 to play all your cards, and it gets a little clunky. Because you're wondering, like, do I level yellow, do I level blue, do I level green, what am I going to draw to clock next turn, and stuff like that. For level 2s, we have Dicey Cafe Gilbert. This is sort of an alternative level 2 backup you can play if you want. It is only net, so before it wasn't really... Or it was still searchable off of like everything except drop searchers. Now your drop searcher can grab it too. But it's an anti-change backup that puts your opponent's character on the bottom of their deck. Unfortunately, it's pay 2 discard an avatar or net character instead of the pay 2 and send a character from your stage to waiting room. That would have been a little better on this, but still an anti-change backup that can make your opponent sort of think twice about anti-changing. And since you usually win on offense in this deck, you'll always have a board to force them to frontal attack into to give you a counter step. Next is Machine of Ice Sinon. A bunch of people probably think I'm crazy for taking this out. This is a really good card. So it's a 1k assist, and you can rest it, choose one of your opponent's characters, and that character gets the following ability until end of turn. During this card's battle, you cannot play event cards and backup from your hand. So it gives your opponent the effect that they can't play backups during that one card's battle. Really good on paper. Really good in not English. Really bad when you look at what kind of stuff you want to be targeting with this in English. obviously this stops like anti-damage events and stuff like that, right? Well, the issue is you choose your opponent's character, so you can't choose Yami, so you can't block Project Darkness. You cannot choose Darkness in Konosuba, so you can't prevent them from backupping to be able to like just kill your character and get the like burn thing off. You cannot choose. What else can you not choose? You can't choose Attack on Titan's characters, so you can't deny their maneuver gears and memory counters and stuff, because the Arm and Assist makes their characters hexproof. There's just like a lot of stuff that you can't target with this. And I ended up cutting it from the deck just because I was never getting good use out of it. A lot of your relevant matchups, the opponent just has like hexproof characters. So I just ended up taking this out because I wasn't getting use out of it. But it is, if you think blocking the backups and stuff. This was also, so what you could do is you could play this at level 2 with your early play. You make your early play really big, because the early play of choice before was the Kirito. And you could make, he was very small on offense, but he was big on defense. So the 1k assist and making your opponent unable to back up meant you could usually win on offense and keep him safe. Because if they can't back up, like he's like 10k, 10-5 in front of this. So that was usually like bigger than your opponent's characters, but smaller than their backups. So you'd have to do this so that he wouldn't die to a backup. But we don't play him anymore, so it's less important. Next is the reason I won't lose Kirito. So this is a bottom deck anti-change bomb. You just play this instead of the Asuna if you don't want yellow. That's about it. Next we have Lightning Flash Asuna and Black Swordsman Kirito. I think this card is insanely good. I just don't play it for one reason, and I'll get to that. So continuous, if a card named Time to Get Serious Kirito is in your clock, this card gets -1 level while in your hand. So that's the level 0 Kirito that rests things. So it's already a good card, and it's a card that we're playing. So your clock condition is very, very easy. Continuous, this card gets plus 500 power for each of your other avatar or net characters. So this is a relatively sizable early play. It's 11k, which is better than most of the early, actually all of the other early plays in Sword Art. All of them are either bigger, like slightly bigger on offense and then way smaller on defense, or way smaller on offense and slightly bigger on defense. But this is just like a good size on both turns. Last effect is on play, draw a card, choose a cost 1 or lower character in your hand and put it in any position of your stage. So this is good in that it lets you get a cost 1 character out for 0 cost. So you're effectively, like, you're cantripping and saving a stock. The issue is that we're not playing cost 1 characters that we want to summon out with this. So if you're playing this, your best target is probably Machine of Ice. And if you put this in, then you probably put Machine of Ice in with it. Because you can play this, draw a card, and play Machine of Ice for 0 stock, which is really good. And then Machine of Ice also makes this bigger and can save it from backups and stuff. So that's a really good combination. I also think you should probably be playing 4 copies of the Kirito level 0 if you're playing this, just so you hit your condition more often. And unfortunately, I don't have room for 4 in my deck. Like, I could probably find it, but it's very tight. And I think the Yuna healing and being green and having the power pump combos, because you can pump Clock Kick, you can pump all those other things I mentioned, is a little more useful in the long run. But this is a very good card. And if you can find some good 1-cost characters to play, then playing this and getting value out of that is really nice. Next we have Overcoming Fear Asuna. I actually just put this card in here to tell you why not to play it. There's a lot of people trying to play this, and I don't... man, this card's bad. This card's actually bad. It seems really good on paper, but it's just bad. On play, you heal. So that's cool, right? You heal. Climax combo. When this card attacks, if a card named Mother's Rosario, which is the same name as your Yuki level 1 Climax, which is the gold bar. It's also a yellow stock soul for this. You can play either one, they both trigger this. On attack, discard 2. Put the top 11 cards of your deck into waiting room. Deal X damage. This gains 3k power until end of turn. X is equal to the number of soul trigger icons revealed among those cards. So, if you're playing a normal lineup, you're probably dealing like 3 or 4 damage with this. You're like, why is this bad? I'm dealing extra damage, it's a climax I already play, and it's a healer. right? Alright, so the issue is playing this. So a lot of people are trying to play this as like a one of. And they're like, if I miss my book or whatever, I can play this in the gold bar and still get a finish. So this is bad as a healer, because your other top end already heals. If you're playing a vanilla healer, both of your things are 10k healers. One of them's on an easier color, and it's not this one. Sinon is blue. You're playing a billion blue cards. As a finisher, this and Sinon are dealing pretty much the same damage. This is 2 cards from hand, Sinon's 2 stock and 1 card from hand. So this has a little lower cost. The thing is, if you're playing just one of this, that's worse than playing like 2 Sinons, for sure. And about the same as playing 1 Sinon. But the other thing is, if you're playing this, you're not playing any other Sinons that turn. So you're not doing both. Sinon you can field in multiples. If you're just playing one of this, you're not fielding it in multiples. If you are fielding it in multiples, I don't know how you're getting enough hand to do that. And if you do have enough hand, you don't anymore after the end of the turn. Because you just discard like everything, and then this dies. And milling 11 usually is going to put you into refresh. Or at least like the 11 plus your trigger checks is going to put you either into refresh or very close. Because you're normally refreshing just a little over 20 cards. So if you've gone through like any of your deck, this is refreshing you, which is not good. Because that means you're taking a damage. So this is effectively discard 2, clock 1, if that's the case. Because of refresh damage. And then you are messing up your current deck state. If you have 11 cards with no climaxes, yeah, this is amazing. But if you have like any number of climaxes left in your deck, you're probably just messing up your compression and making it worse by discarding 2 and milling 11. Because the card that you healed off is going back into your deck. The 2 stock for playing this are immediately going back into your deck. The 2 cards you discard are going back into your deck, which probably aren't climaxes. Or maybe one of them is. And then you're milling 11, and then you're refreshing. So you're almost always going to be refreshing into worse compression than you had before. So you're more likely to just die. Plus, like, if you refresh, the clock just sort of takes away the heal that you got off of this. So you're just more likely to die if you don't kill them with this. And you're not any more likely to kill them than Sinon is. Like, you're burning 3 to 4 on average. And if you go higher than that, if you play the stock soul or whatever and go higher than that, then you're just a worse chance of it sticking than Sinon is. So there's just no reason to play this when you could just focus on getting Sinon more consistently. And blowing them out with Sinon, instead of trying to like play this as, oh, what if I don't get Sinon? Just build your deck to always get Sinon. So next is Link Strike Sinon. This is another card I'm not a big fan of at all. It's an early play. -1 level if you have 4 or more other Avatar or net characters. Super easy early play condition. Super free. Love the early play condition. On play from hand or by the auto effect of a card named Link Strike Kirito, which we don't play. That's a different finishing combo. Draw card, this gains 2k. Also really good. If you put those 2 effects and a third good effect, or just made this have more power, this might be like considerable as the early play of the deck. Instead of Yuna. But the last effect is kind of like, so it's Eris, effectively. From Konosuba. This activates at 1 time per turn. When the character in the middle position of center stage attacks, you can pay 1, discard 2, mill 3. If there's a climax among them, stand this. You will hit a climax roughly 65 to 70% of the time in a normal deck. Unfortunately, you have to pay the cost before you know if you hit. And pay 1, discard 2 to have a third of a chance, basically have like a 1/3 chance of just negging and not getting anything out of it, is not okay in my eyes. I think this is just like, as an early play, it's too weak. You swing for 11 and then die. You cantrip, swing for 11 and die. And that's just a little too weak for me as an early play. And as a finisher, it's too inconsistent, when I could just be like burning 4 with Sinons, with last shot Sinons. So I don't see this as a card that's worth playing, just because it's trying to fulfill 2 roles at once, and it's just not doing either of them good enough. If it focused on one or the other and made it better, then that would be pretty nice. And sorry if you hear a phone ringing in the background right now. So our early play, our last early play option, because there's like a billion of them apparently. This is the one that was played in the deck beforehand. Getting the Holy Sword Kirito. It's if the number of climaxes in your waiting room is 2 or less, this gets -1 level while in your hand. So it's the same condition as Yuna, which is why we played. This is a good condition. The deck usually ends up hitting it fairly easily, especially now. More so now than it did before, even. During your opponent's turn, this gets 500 power for each of your other avatar net characters. So this is the one I was talking about, where you're weak. You're kind of weak on offense, but you're pretty big on defense. Which is why you needed the Machine of Ice to keep it safe on offense. And then on play, draw 2, discard 1. So this was really good hand filtering on play. So this was a good card. I think right now, it's just like, you don't need the sustainability as much when you have the Yuna pumping stuff and like the clean cut Kirito to get you pluses. You don't need this surviving. Like, it's not as important. I think the heal is a little bit more impactful than this right now. But this is still a decent card. There's also the whole thing, like, a lot of people have been saying, like, Sword Art doesn't need to early play right now. Like, you don't even need to play any. I think it's true that the deck doesn't need to early play ever. But I think it's a nice, momentum play. Like, a nice tempo play where you just, like, you can keep rolling through your opponent. Like, once you get going, you can just keep going. If you play an early play and they can't kill it, it can really swing things in your favor. So I think it's worth it to play one. I don't know that you always have to go for it every game, because sometimes you just don't have the stock resources. The other thing is that, like, Yuna, compared to these, Yuna heals, which gives you a little bit of a chance of staying at level 2 longer. Which gives you more time to make back the stock that you paid on her, so that you go into level 3 as your finisher with enough stock. Whereas these guys aren't really helping you with that. All the other early plays. So the last card we have here is Opposition by the Shield. This is an anti-damage counter. Sword Art finally got one. Choose a character in battle. That character gets the following ability until end of turn. This card cannot deal damage to a player. This card is really, really good. I don't think you play it, though. And here's my reason. In Sword Art, all of your finishers are very either hand-intensive, stock-intensive, or both. And it's very hard to hold on to this. A, it's not searchable because it's an event, right? So you have to hold on to it. And it is not easy to hold on to this and generate the resources to play out your finisher effectively and still use this. You're either discarding too much and aren't going to be able to hold this, or you're paying too much stock and aren't going to be able to pay for this. Your option, of course, is to not use as many copies of your finisher and save off for this. But I think in the end, just trying to kill your opponent is a better game plan than trying to hit them and then live a turn and then hit them again. The other issue being that hexproof characters cannot be targeted by this, since it chooses. So you can't hit Yami with this, you cannot hit Darkness with this, you cannot hit anything in Attack on Titan with this. There's a level 2 assist in Sword Art in the new set that I didn't put in here. That is the intended target for the yellow early play, where you play a cost 1 down. It's the intended target, it's a level assist, and on play you give a character 1500 in hexproof. I didn't mention it because hexproof just for a single turn isn't super useful, but it is notable in that you can give characters hexproof in Sword Art, which negates this counter. So a lot of the just really relevant decks right now have hexproof in English, so it's not super good. And even against other Sword Art decks, they're either getting 5+ attacks on individual characters, so this is still only blocking 1 instance, or they're Sinon, where they're dealing damage before counter step. So you're taking the burn 4 before you even get to play this. So this just ends up not having a whole lot of use in English. I think it's better to just play more consistency cards and play toward your actual win conditions than trying to live longer. So here's the deck list again. Like I said, the only change I'd really make is maybe taking out the Married Life Asunas for the on-stage Asuna Brainstorms. But I think everything else in here at this point is very good. The deck is super consistent, so it's not really an issue having all these one-ofs. You have plenty of ways to search them and hand fix for them, and it gets you out of a lot of sticky situations. The deck is just really good, really consistent. There's a reason it has so much representation and how many tops it gets. Like, the deck is just really good. This is one of the 2 best decks to be on right now in English. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, think I'm wrong about anything, any cards I didn't talk about that you want me to talk about, post those in the comments. Please comment with stuff like that. Like the video, subscribe, all that. I will see you guys next week on Connor's English Corner.